There are moments in life when the weight feels unbearable. You've prayed, you've pushed, you've done everything you know how to do, and yet the breakthrough hasn't come. You look around and wonder, does God even see me? Does he notice my pain? Does he know how exhausted I am? And the answer is yes. God sees your struggle and he knows you're tired. But here's the truth. Your weariness is not wasted, your tears are not invisible, and your prayers are not unheard. Heaven has taken note of every battle you've fought in silence, and God has been closer than you think. There are seasons in life when it feels like you are completely invisible. You show up every day, you do the work, you keep going through the motions, and yet no one seems to notice the weight you carry. People may applaud the successes they can see, but they rarely recognize the struggles you fight in silence. It can feel as if the late nights you spend crying, the prayers whispered in exhaustion, and the brave face you put on for the world mean nothing to anyone. But the truth is, God sees what others don't. His eyes are never blind to your reality. When you are overlooked by people, you are still deeply noticed by him. God sees the details that others dismiss. He knows the unspoken battles you fight within your own heart, the pressure you never articulate out loud, and the pain you disguise behind a smile. Sometimes people only judge what they see on the outside. They think you are strong, put together, and unshakable. They applaud your courage without realizing that behind closed doors, you are barely holding on. That is why it is so powerful to know that God is the God who sees you. He does not need you to explain. He does not require you to prove your pain because he already knows. He was there when the tears stained your pillow. He was there when your thoughts spiraled in the darkness. He was there when you felt ignored, abandoned, or dismissed. His presence does not withdraw in your low points. It leans in closer. The Bible gives us the story of Hagar, a woman who experienced this truth in the most raw and painful way. She was cast aside, mistreated, and left wandering in the wilderness with nothing but despair in her heart. She must have felt utterly invisible, as if her existence did not matter to anyone. But in the middle of her suffering, God revealed himself to her in such a personal way that she called him El Roi, the God who sees me. Imagine that. At the moment when she felt least valuable, when no human eyes cared enough to notice her pain, the creator of the universe assured her that she was not invisible. He saw her then, and he sees you now. This truth is important because when you believe God sees you, you stop living for the approval of people. You no longer need constant recognition or applause to validate your worth. People may overlook your efforts, but God treasures every act of faithfulness. People may not know the battles you win in private, but heaven records every victory. What others don't celebrate, God crowns. You can walk with peace, even if no one claps for you, because you know you are already seen, already valued, already loved. Think about a single mother who works 2 jobs, comes home exhausted, helps her children with homework, and still finds a way to whisper a prayer before bed. She might feel like nobody sees her sacrifice, nobody understands her exhaustion, nobody realizes how much she is giving just to hold everything together. But God sees her. He sees the long hours, the quiet tears, and the strength she draws from him when she has none left of her own. One day, her children may look back and realize the depth of her sacrifice. But even if they don't, God already knows, and he honors her faithfulness. That is the kind of God we serve, a God who sees beyond appearances, beyond masks, beyond silence. He sees the weariness of the caretaker, the loneliness of the leader, the struggles of the student, the heartbreak of the parent, the quiet perseverance of the believer who keeps pressing forward despite the pain. And when he sees, He does not just watch passively. He moves with compassion, with understanding, with love. He promises that not even a sparrow falls without his notice. And if that is true for the smallest of his creations, how much more true is it for you, his beloved child? So if you are feeling invisible, forgotten, or unworthy, remember this: you are fully seen by the God who never misses a detail. The world may pass by without acknowledgement, but heaven does not. You are noticed. You are valued. You are loved. And that truth is enough to carry you through even the seasons where no one else seems to care. God sees what others don't, and that is more than enough. There is a lie that often creeps into the heart of a believer when life feels heavy. The thought that being tired must mean you lack faith. You start to wonder, if I really trusted God, shouldn't I feel stronger? Shouldn't I be able to push through without feeling so weary? But tiredness is not a reflection of weak faith. It is a reflection of being human. Even the strongest warriors grow weary when the battle drags on too long, and even the most devoted followers of God can feel drained under the weight of unrelenting trials. The presence of exhaustion in your life is not evidence that your faith is failing. It is proof that you have been fighting hard and giving your all. When we think of weariness, our minds should immediately turn to Jesus. The Son of God, who was perfect in faith, carried the weight of the cross up the hill of Calvary. Along the way, he stumbled and fell. That moment was not weakness in his spirit. It was heaviness in his flesh. He was exhausted, beaten, and bloodied, and his body could no longer carry the load. And what did God do? He provided Simon of Cyrene to step in and help him carry it. That simple detail in the story speaks volumes. Even Jesus needed help under the crushing burden of the cross. If the Savior of the world, who never once doubted his Father, could stumble under pressure, then your own exhaustion cannot possibly mean you are faithless. It simply means you are human and in need of strength beyond your own. Your tiredness can actually become a gateway for God's strength to show up in fresh ways. If you never grew weary, you would never learn to lean on him fully. Sometimes we think we must always be the strong one, the steady one, the one holding everything together. But the truth is, God delights in meeting us in our weakness. His word declares that his strength is made perfect in weakness. That means the very moment you feel like you cannot take another step is often the exact place where his power shows up most clearly. Instead of condemning yourself for being tired, you can see your weariness as an invitation to experience his grace in deeper ways. Think about the life of Elijah. After the great victory on Mount Carmel, where fire came down from heaven, you would expect him to be filled with confidence and faith. Yet soon after, he was so exhausted, so overwhelmed, that he sat under a broom tree and prayed for God to take his life. He was not faithless, he was tired. And how did God respond? Not with anger, not with rebuke, but with care. God sent an angel to provide food, water, and rest. Elijah needed restoration, not correction. His tiredness was not proof of unbelief. It was a sign that he had poured himself out in battle and needed renewal. The same is true for you. Your fatigue is not an indictment against your faith. It is a signal that you have carried a heavy load for a long time and now need God's strength to lift you. Sometimes that strength comes through his Spirit, filling you with peace and prayer. Sometimes it comes through a timely word of encouragement from a friend. Sometimes it comes through rest, where your body and mind finally recharge. No matter the form, God always provides what you need. He does not expect you to fight endlessly on your own. He promises to supply the strength you lack. Consider the example of a nurse working long hours during a difficult season. She prays every day before her shift, trusts God to guide her hands, and gives her best to care for people who are suffering. Yet after weeks of non-stop work, she feels drained. She starts to question herself, thinking, if I really had faith, I wouldn't feel so tired. But the reality is, her tiredness is not a lack of faith. It's a reflection of her sacrifice, her service, and her humanity. And in her fatigue, God meets her with quiet moments of renewal. Through a patience thank you, through a scripture verse that suddenly feels alive, or through the stillness of prayer when she has nothing left to give. Her faith is alive not because she never grows weary, but because she keeps leaning on God when she does. So do not despise your tiredness. Do not let the enemy twist your exhaustion into shame. Being tired does not mean you have failed. It means you have been pouring yourself out in the fight of faith. And when you can no longer carry the load, that is when God's strength carries you. He does not condemn you for being weary. He covers you with His grace and reminds you that you are not walking this road alone. There are times in life when the struggles we face feel like nothing more than unnecessary pain. We question why things are taking so long, why the answers haven't come, why doors remain closed no matter how hard we knock. It is in those seasons that discouragement can take root, convincing us that our struggle is pointless or that God has abandoned us. But the truth is, God often does His deepest and most transformative work in the hidden struggles, the places nobody else sees. What feels like delay or punishment is many times the soil of preparation, where character is being developed, resilience is being formed, and faith is being stretched. Your tears, though they feel wasted, are watering seeds of a harvest you cannot yet see. Struggle has a way of stripping us down to the core of who we really are. When life is comfortable, we rarely grow. Comfort breeds complacency, but struggle births strength. It is only when we are pressed beyond our limits that we discover what God has placed within us. The uphill climbs and long nights of uncertainty are not designed to destroy you, but to reveal you. They expose what needs to be refined and awaken what needs to come alive. That is why some of the most powerful testimonies are born out of seasons of hidden struggle. What you see as a setback may be the very stage God is using to set up your greatest breakthrough. It is important to remember that God values who you are becoming far more than what you are achieving. While we are often focused on outcomes, getting the promotion, finding the opportunity, reaching the goal, God is focused on the process. He is more interested in shaping your heart than in delivering quick results. The struggle teaches you to depend on Him, to keep moving when you feel like quitting, and to trust that even when nothing makes sense, He is still in control. Struggles become the classroom where God writes His lessons into your soul. Lessons that will one day empower you to stand strong in places you never imagined you could. Consider the story of Joseph. He was given a dream of greatness as a young man, but instead of moving straight into that promise, he faced betrayal by his brothers, slavery in a foreign land, and false accusations that landed him in prison. For years, it must have felt like the dream God gave him was slipping further away with every hardship. Yet in reality, God was working in the hidden struggle. Every test was building wisdom, patience, humility, and resilience. By the time Joseph was elevated to second in command in Egypt, he was not the naive dreamer he had been. He was a man forged by struggle, prepared to carry the weight of responsibility and to save countless lives during famine. Without the struggle, the testimony of Joseph's life would never have been so powerful. The same principle applies in our lives. What we despise now may be the very thing God will use later as the foundation of our testimony. The delay in your career may be protecting you until your character matches the opportunity. The heartbreak you endured may be the soil in which God is planning empathy to help others heal. The nights of wrestling in prayer may be building spiritual endurance that will sustain you in future battles. None of it is wasted. The hidden struggle is not God's rejection. It is His preparation. Take the example of a young athlete training for a marathon. The hours of practice are grueling, often lonely, and filled with pain. There are no crowds cheering during the early morning runs, no medals handed out for the endless drills, no recognition for the silent sacrifices. But every drop of sweat is preparing the body, strengthening muscles, and conditioning the heart. On race day, the strength that was built in secret becomes visible to all. The hidden struggle, unseen by most, was the very place the victory was forged. In the same way, the struggles you are walking through now may not make sense and may not be seen by anyone else, but they are building something within you that comfort never could. God is shaping you for the destiny He has prepared, and while the process may hurt, the purpose will be worth it. When you finally stand on the other side, you will look back and realize that the hidden struggle was the place where God was closest, where your faith was tested, and where your testimony was written. So many people live with the false idea that rest means weakness, or that taking a step back somehow proves you are giving up. We live in a culture that glorifies constant striving, endless productivity, and the belief that if you are not always moving, you are falling behind. Yet God invites us into something completely different. Rest is not quitting, it is trusting. To rest in God is to declare that the weight of the world does not sit on your shoulders, but on His. It is to acknowledge that your strength has limits, but His power never does. When you step back and breathe, you are not surrendering the fight, you are surrendering control to the one who already holds the victory. Rest is one of the most spiritual things you can practice because it proves that your faith is not in your own ability, but in God's. When Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest," He was not offering a vacation or a break from responsibility. He was offering a deep soul rest, the kind that reaches into the weary places of your heart and calms the storm within. Resting in Him is not laziness. Laziness avoids responsibility, but true rest acknowledges responsibility while recognizing that the outcome is in God's hands. To rest is to say, I have done all I can, and now I will trust God to do what I cannot. Sometimes the hardest thing for us to do is to stop striving. We think that if we push harder, pray longer, work faster, or fight more fiercely, then maybe we can make things happen. But when God calls us to rest, He is calling us to release that need to control. He is reminding us that we are not the source of our own provision, breakthrough, or healing. Rest is an act of humility. It is admitting that no matter how strong or capable we are, we were never designed to carry everything alone. When you rest, you place the battle back into God's hands, and you declare with your life that you trust His timing, His plan, and His power. Even in Scripture, God made rest a command. The Sabbath was not a suggestion. It was His way of showing that life is not meant to be an endless grind. Think about it. God Himself, after creating the heavens and the earth, rested on the seventh day. If the Creator of the universe took time to rest, what makes us believe we can survive without it? Rest is not a sign of weakness. It is a reflection of divine wisdom. It is choosing to pause, not because you have finished everything, but because you trust God enough to know that He will sustain what you cannot. There is a difference between quitting and resting. Quitting says, I give up because it's impossible. Rest says, I will stop striving because I trust God to do the impossible. One leads to despair, the other leads to peace. Rest refreshes the soul, sharpens perspective, and renews strength for the journey ahead. That is why Scripture reminds us that His strength is made perfect in our weakness. Your weakness is not a liability. It is an opportunity for God's strength to shine through. Imagine a farmer who plants his crops. After sowing the seeds, he does not sit in the field day and night, straining to force the plants to grow. He waters them. He tends to the soil. But ultimately, he knows growth comes from forces outside his control: sunlight, rain, and time. If he tried to force growth, he would only wear himself out. His rest is not neglect. It is trust that nature set in motion by God will do its work. In the same way, after you have sown the seeds of prayer, effort, and faithfulness, there comes a point where striving only exhausts you. That is when rest becomes your act of trust, your declaration that God will bring the increase in His timing. Resting in God doesn't mean the situation changes instantly. The storm may still rage, the problem may still exist, the mountain may still stand tall, but rest shifts the burden off your heart and places it onto God's shoulders. And when you rest in Him, you will discover a peace that makes no sense to the world around you. That peace is the evidence of trust. So if you are weary from carrying a load too heavy, if you are exhausted from trying to fix everything on your own, hear this truth. Resting is not quitting. It is faith. It is your soul saying, God, I trust you enough to stop striving. And in that place of rest, you will find the renewal, strength, and peace you've been searching for all along. When life feels overwhelming and every day seems like another uphill climb, it is easy to believe that your struggle defines you. The weight of disappointment, the constant battles, and the unanswered prayers whisper the lie that this is how your story will end. But the truth is, your struggle will not have the final word. Struggles are temporary, but God's promises are eternal. Pain has an expiration date, but the purpose God has placed on your life cannot be canceled. What you are facing today may feel endless, but it is only a chapter, not the conclusion of your story. It is important to remember that seasons change. No winter lasts forever, and no storm rages without end. Struggles are like seasons. They come, they test you, they shape you, but they do not last forever. The enemy wants to convince you that because you are tired, you are finished. He wants you to believe that weakness means defeat, but God sees your weariness differently. To Him, tiredness is not the end. It is a sign that you are closer than ever to breakthrough. Sometimes when you are crawling, you are still moving forward, and even the smallest step in faith keeps you on the path toward victory. The promises of God are not fragile. They do not expire just because you are struggling. In fact, many of God's greatest promises were delivered to people in their hardest seasons. Think about the Israelites at the Red Sea. To them, the struggle looked final, an enemy army behind them and an impassable sea before them. Yet God had the final word, parting the waters and leading them through on dry ground. What looked like certain defeat became their greatest testimony. Their struggle did not write the ending. God did. This truth carries into your life as well. Whatever trial you are enduring, whether it is heartbreak, financial struggle, family issues, or battles within your own mind, it does not define the outcome. God does. He has promised that He who began a good work in you will carry it to completion. That means if you are still breathing, He is still working. The struggle cannot cancel the promise, and the pain cannot erase the purpose. There will be moments when the silence feels louder than your prayers, when it looks like nothing is changing despite all your faith and effort. That is when you must hold on to this truth. Your story is not over. Just because it hurts now doesn't mean it always will. Just because you are tired now doesn't mean you are defeated. The cross looked like the final word for Jesus, The grave seemed like the end of his story. But 3 days later, resurrection proved that what looks final to man is never final to God. A powerful example of this can be seen in the life of a young student who struggled with repeated failure. He dreamed of becoming a doctor, but failed his entrance exams multiple times. Each time, people told him to quit, to give up, to accept that it wasn't meant for him. The struggle felt like it was speaking louder than his purpose. Yet he refused to let failure be the final word. With perseverance, prayer, and renewed determination, he tried again. Years later, he not only passed but excelled, eventually becoming a doctor who saved countless lives. Looking back, he realized that the failures were not the end. They were the process God used to build his resilience. His struggle was loud, but it was not final. That same truth applies to you. The difficulty you are facing right now may look permanent, but it is not. The enemy may shout that you are finished, but God whispers that you are closer than ever. The season you are in may be painful, but it is preparing you for the promise ahead. Struggle does not write the ending, God does. And his word is final, his promise is unshakable, his purpose is unstoppable. So do not let your current battle convince you that this is how your story ends. Lift your head and remind yourself that weariness is temporary, but God's faithfulness is eternal. The pain will pass, but the promise will stand. The God who began his work in you will finish it. And one day you will look back and see that your greatest struggle became the foundation of your greatest testimony. So if you're weary, if you're struggling, if you're ready to give up, hear this today: God sees you. He knows the load you've been carrying. He hasn't forgotten your prayers, and he hasn't abandoned your side. Lean into him, breathe, rest in his presence. And remember, your tiredness is not your ending. It's the place where his strength takes over. Lift your head, because God is about to turn your struggle into strength and your weariness into a testimony that will inspire others.